Well, hello everyone. Today we're here to talk about the changing face of addiction. I'm your host, Adrienne Ticky. Today is all about understanding the changing face of addiction so that you can help yourself or loved one recover and live their best life. You see, the slide here has an umbrella and it's kind of shining a light on this woman who there's a table behind her with alcohol and pills. And that's what we typically think of when we think of addiction, but that really is a bigger umbrella than that. It can be, certainly it can be substances like alcohol and drugs, but it can also be um, behaviors now. It can be gambling or shopping or porn. It can be a gaming addiction where you can't stop playing Call of Duty and you make basically a whole nother family with the family that is upstairs, waiting for you at the dinner table. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the changing face of addiction. What people think addiction looks like on the slide to your left. I've got some photos down here. And, the first one, what people think addiction looks like, they think he looks like the homeless guy or on the street with the bottle of wine, the brown paper bag, the gang member who is selling drugs, the token drunk at the office party. You see her passed out here, everybody can remember somebody falling in their plate or sitting in a precarious position, all the way to the prostitute selling their body to get their next fix. But actually, addiction is changing. Um, it looks more mainstream, like you and me. It looks like the person looking back at you in the mirror, the soccer mom buying drugs, this first picture, the teenager that's addicted to video games, the doctor who's writing his own scripts, or the C-suite executive who takes something to get up and something to go to bed. And they're actually caught in a prison that they can't get out of. A lot of this change happened after 2019. And we had the lockdown and it turned from, you might go out with the girls a couple of times a week to you're getting boxes of alcohol or drugs delivered to your house. Why addiction happens? The face of addiction has already changed, as we talked about. No longer just the wino on the street or the people that we just looked at. We are all affected now. So every one of us has been through some type of PTSD since the pandemic. But we also want to talk about the adverse childhood experiences, also called ACE. This is also trauma. Now, individuals with ACE scores of greater than 5 are 7 to 10 times more likely to report illicit drug use than those compared to the ones without those adverse child experiences. So this is a huge number. 50 million people are affected by addiction in this country in 2023. And as a matter of fact, addiction, it was only by a few thousand, but addiction actually killed more people than COVID in 2023. What might surprise you is the changing face being not the wino on the street, but the woman drowning in wine. The women are particularly affected. The National Institute of Health study talked about 2019 to 2020, women were twice as more likely than men to die of an alcohol-related illness, and particularly in the age group of 55 to 64. Another reason why addiction happens is there's an allergic reaction which causes an obsession of the mind and a compulsion of the body. This actually is scientifically proven now. So in someone like for example, I'm allergic to Benadryl. And when most people take Benadryl, they're sleepy and they go to bed. But when I take Benadryl, I'm really amped up, to the point where my heart flutters, and it's on my allergy list for that reason, that it is an allergy for me. In the alcoholic, which is 10% of the population across the board, across all socioeconomic levels, across all religions, across all skin types, it affects 10% of the people across the board. So they have an allergic reaction to where when they take the substance or they do the behavior that releases that dopamine fix, it acts in their brain in a different way. So you can see in these slides, the man is pointing to people whose brains are kind of a rat's nest, a ball of yarn. It really is an allergy that sets off a desire to get that first high, to always chasing that first high, and you unfortunately need more and more to get that high, and then eventually you're just using to stay well. Another reason why addiction happens is fetal alcohol or drug syndrome, FASD. This happens when people are pregnant and the drugs that they're using gets passed on to the fetus in utero, and they are born in a horrible state of withdrawal because they come into the world and then they don't have that constant source of drugs or alcohol or behaviors that change the chemistry. And then the last reason is a spiritual hole in the heart. You know, trying to fill the hole in the heart with these behaviors or these addictions, reaching for unhealthy ways to escape, where later on in the presentation, we're going to talk about some healthy alternatives. So we go from that first box where the mind's messed up, and then the second box is they reach for a substance or a behavior to get them out of their current situation to escape. And when they come to us, we actually try to rewire their brain, give them a new way of life through our programs, through our recovery residence community, the Lodge at Delray Beach, through Recovery Comes Home, and through Lodge Recovery Advocates, where we work with people on all levels to get to that last slide where that ball of yarn turns into something more serene and peaceful, like a labyrinth where you walk to the center and you just take a few minutes of peace and then you walk back out. Let's talk about when addiction happens. The first thing that people usually experience is rehab. They explore professional treatment programs that provide comprehensive care and assistance. This can be various things depending on the severity of the addiction that we're talking about. And I'll go more into depth on those later, but they go in all the way from intervention to then rejoining the community. So rehab is a good start. Most places offer a 28-day program, with some offering 3 months, up to 3 months, and then a few places that we know people that have been to several times are a year program. So it is definitely an individual case-by-case basis, but there are different levels of rehab for different severity of cases. Then we have recovery residences, where 80% of the people graduating from rehab go home. 20% come to a recovery residence like ours, called the Lodge at Delray Beach, where you live with others facing similar challenges and create a safe environment from which to recover. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the bottom level is safety and security. And you can't get to that top level where you have that connection with a spiritual source without the safety. You know, it's really hard for people that are struggling with addiction and might be in withdrawal. We've got post-acute withdrawal syndrome can last up to a year, A lot of people report buzzing in their body after getting off of benzodiazepines like Xanax or Ativan. But so you have a safe place from which to recover. You're living with other people that are hopefully uh, making recovery a priority by getting a sponsor and getting a job and working the steps or using the tools of other support networks. And then those are the additional resources. You have recovery advocates like the Lodge Recovery Advocacy Program, or coaches that can help you learn how to live a life that you design, that your loved one designs, that is applicable to them, and not just so they don't feel like they're just living up to somebody else's expectations or always failing at what other people want them to do. So we've come up, Jim and I, with the ABCs of recovery, because I noticed pretty early on, whether it's pills or substances from a addiction, illicit, illegal point of view, or prescription drugs, I noticed that Jim and I were recovering from our progressive and fatal illnesses, if not arrested, in almost identical ways. The first one was to accept our situations, right? So accept your situation and take action. We had to recognize first off that we had a progressive and fatal illness, if not arrested. His is mental, mine is physical, but that acceptance is absolutely fundamental. And then you can take appropriate action based on that situation. You don't have to take it alone. This is where you do your research. You talk with others who are in the similar situation. You look to people who have what you want and find out the action that they're taking. I don't know if you've heard this saying, but they say that success leaves clues. And I believe that recovery leaves clues as well. You can watch what other people are doing and get those people to help you with that. Then B is be brave enough to start over and over until you achieve your goals. Recovery is not a straight line, and so it's important to get some resilience that can be built like a muscle. It's not something that it's like, oh, I'm just, it's easy to think that some people are just born with an ability to get over things and recover. But the reality is it's complicated for all of us. We all have a hard time starting over. It's difficult to build something up and have it torn down and then feel like you're starting over from scratch. I know that feeling. Mine was in a hospital. Our clients and our families, it's in treatment centers, but you get institutionalized nonetheless, unless you are really conscious about remaining resilient and proactive. And the C is cultivate a stellar support network. We aren't meant to do this life alone. We never were. And so it's really essential to surround yourself. You've heard of the proximity. You are a product of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. Again, going back to watching what other people say and then what they do. Get people that have what you want and find out how they did it. It might not be an exact roadmap for you, but at least it can give you some pillars to start from. Jim and I really believe that how you recover from anything is how you recover from everything. It's really a mental attitude. We start with the how, the honesty, the open-mindedness, the willingness to accept your situation, take action. Be brave enough to start over and over until you achieve your goals, and cultivate that stellar support network for yourself. And with these tools, you're well on your way. So let's look a little bit more into that. Accepting the situation and taking appropriate action. What does that look like? Well, we can cultivate empathy, learn how to raise awareness, how raising awareness can help cultivate compassion and support for individuals struggling with substance abuse. In the town that I live in, Delray Beach, Florida, 20% of our population of 70,000 is in recovery. And we have a town that knows about this. It's been really beneficial for us with our work at the lodge and recovery, lodge recovery advocacy, because we can actually go into businesses and say, look, we have men in recovery that are willing to work hard for you during the time that they're staying down here. Is that something that we can work together with? And we have several companies like Lowe's and First Watch, or Another Broken Egg, which are breakfast and lunch places, First Whole Foods, TJ Maxx, Target, Ross, Marshalls, places like that, that are really jobs that they can get without having to have a lot of brain power. You know, as this slide shows, you really need to grab on to those hands that are holding you, and then know that you're surrounded behind you with a lot of support. The other ways to accept the situation and take appropriate action is to seek professional help. As I mentioned earlier, the cases are going to fluctuate between very severe and maybe more mild. So, you know, I don't know where you might come in here, whether it's with the intervention that you've gone to such a place where you need to get a team of people around you to say, here's your wake up call. We love you. We're supporting you. We're behind you. And we think you need to get help. And then there's detox facilities with particular drugs and substances. It's really dangerous to stop those cold turkey, particularly with alcohol or benzodiazepines like Xanax or Ativan. You can go into seizures if you don't have that medication. So there's other addictions too. Consult a detox facility. They can help you get through that withdrawal period, which is where most people fail. Then there's treatment centers. These can be all the way from a residential treatment center where you are actually living in the treatment center. You are kind of removed from society. The examples of that are places like Alina Lodge, where you're actually removed for a year from society, and you're taught a new way of life. That can be what we call PHP, which is partial hospitalization programs. That is where you go to treatment classes in one place. It's typically in an office building, and you live in housing that is just for the people that are also in that program with you. Then you have IOP, which stands for intensive outpatient. This is just continuing of treatment care and talking to you a lot about family roles, what, again, addiction looks like today instead of, 50 years ago or even 5 years ago, where we saw predominantly addiction and secondary mental health, to fast forward to 2024, where we're almost all primary mental health, with people using substances or behaviors to get out of themselves, to escape how they feel about themselves. Then the next step is recovery residences. Again, only 20% of those coming out of treatment come to a recovery residence or a sober house or a halfway house. Those are other names for recovery residences. But if you can come to a recovery residence and you can make it to that year clean and sober, you have an 80% chance of staying sober long term. If you don't make it to that year, your chances drop to less than 20% of making it long term. So recovery residence is a place where people live together in group home living situations, who are going through similar situations together. They're all doing the same things. The rules are the same for everybody. It has to be that way. And we're seeing a lot of people succeed if they just stick with the recovery residence program and try to stay there for at least, we recommend a year. Our minimum commitment is 6 months, but it really does take a year to 18 months to get this new way of life familiar and you being used to it. Then there's organized support groups. This can be a 12-step program. That's the one that is the oldest and most well-known. That's places like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, or Cocaine Anonymous. But there are people that don't find the 12-step program helpful for them. And so people have created new support systems like Smart Recovery, which is secular, as well as Save Ourselves. That's also a secular recovery program. Then you have places like Celebrate Recovery, which are clearly a Christian slant on recovery. Places like Recovery Dharma, which talk about Buddhism and meditation. Then you have professional therapy, both individual and family. And we can't suggest this enough to get the connection back within your family. We really feel like people connecting families impacted by addiction as they heal together is the key to this. So it's not about your person going away and getting their own help. This is a family illness, and we need the family to come together and see what they can do to help every member of the family move forward. Then be brave enough to start over as many times as necessary. As I mentioned before, recovery is rarely a straight line. You can get all the way up to the top and then fall back down again here, like this graphic shows, with the person holding the handout, but then there's also somebody shoving them through the window to keep you away from being caught in that fallacy of a magic pill or a silver bullet. Draw resilience from a power greater than yourself. As mentioned earlier, that's a muscle that can be cultivated and grown. You really can start as simple as noticing coincidences that we like to call miracles. But you can call them coincidences until you feel comfortable enough to call them miracles. And, don't be off put by the word God. God to us is many things, but to people that have maybe been harmed by organized religion, this is really about a relationship, not a religion. And I think that repairing that relationship with that power greater than yourself, that can be as simple as saying thank you in the morning when you wake up and thank you in the morning when you go back to sleep. And then learn from others who have gone before you. There's programs that have been around now for 100 years. This is not a new problem for us in society. It's just gotten that the drugs and the behaviors are more dangerous. And so it's more of a desperation to help people now because the drugs and behaviors are more deadly than ever before. Next, we talk about creating a stellar support network. For the organized groups, as I talked about before, for the individuals, there's also several support groups for loved ones, like Al Anon and Families Anonymous. These are where you can go. Maybe you can't tell the mani-pedi lady that your son is smoking crack again, but here you can go with other people that are also learning to deal with a loved one in recovery. There's also quite a few Zoom meetings have come online, especially since 2019. You can join these from the comfort of your own home. And I want to mention that there are particular meetings, both for the Al-Anon and Families Anonymous and the AA, NACA, Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Recovery Dharma. There are Depression and the Alcoholic, for example. There are meetings where you can go if you've lost a child to overdose. There are meetings you go to where you have a spouse in recovery and everybody in the group is married to somebody with an addiction problem. Or you can go to groups where it's the families, again, that are suffering. Well, so what can we do about this changing face of addiction? We can advocate with heart. Stand up for improved substance abuse prevention policies in your community. This can just be as simple as talking to your elected representatives, even down to the community level. Our city council, we just had elections last Tuesday, and it's important to get people into office that are sensitive to the changing needs of recovery because the face of addiction has changed. And then we can support and educate. We can offer a helping hand to those struggling and educate others about the importance of empathy and understanding. A lot of people have myths and misconceptions going all the way back to that one of those first slides where I talked about what people think that addiction is and what addiction actually looks like today. So you can help your friends, neighbors, loved ones, extended family understand how that is changing and what they can do to help. One thing I want to mention is those of you that are either struggling with an addiction or a loved one who is in the caught in the grip, make self-care a priority. We always talk about HALT for both groups. You know, the hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Be cautious about making decisions when you're feeling like this. My mom and I talk about for years that decisions made out of desperation are not usually ever the best solution. But I mean, by a long shot, they're not. They usually are causing more problems than they are helping. Then remember to fill your cup first. The following activities can help. Start a journaling practice. You know, a lot of people have heard that as a suggestion to start a journaling practice. Well, what does that look like? Well, for me, I have a journal that I write to my grandmother almost every day. And I've done that for a few years now. And, you know, things are really good for me now. But 4.5 years ago, I was in a wheelchair and 74 pounds on a feeding tube. And the journey from 4 years ago to today has really been aided by my journaling practice with the journal that I do to my grandmother. Another way that you can fill your cup first is prayer. This can be people praying for you, getting on others' prayer lists, called intercessory prayer sometimes, or you praying for yourself or about your situation. Getting that dialogue going is really important because, as I said, it's a relationship. So if you're only praying once a year, it's like me calling my best friend once a year and expecting that we're going to stay close. The more you can talk and listen to God, and He can talk and listen to you, the better the relationship's going to get. Next, we move to meditation. This is just grounding in the present moment, being where you are, getting comfortable in your own skin, taking that time to really know and feel into what serenity and peace actually feels like. It's a awkward feeling for a lot of people in the beginning. Their mind is racing. They just don't think, they're not a person that can meditate. Their brain moves too fast. Okay, if you can't meditate, start with a breathing practice. Do something like a box breathing where you breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you breathe out for 4, and you breathe in for 4. Do a massage. Massages can be wonderful ways to re-regulate that dopamine system. It just feels really good, and it's good for you to move your muscles. We always say move a muscle, change a thought. So massage is one of the best ways to do that. And of course, my absolute favorite that I did get from my mom and dad is music. My love of music really carries me through. For example, like before I came on today, because I get a little bit nervous before these presentations, so I played songs on my phone that lift me up and make me feel strong. When I'm sad or miss my grandmother, I listen to Love Me by Colin Ray, and it's talking about, you know, if you get there before I do, don't give up on me. I'll meet you when my chores are through. I don't know how long I'll be, but I'm not going to let you down. Darling, wait and see. So in between now and then, till I see you again, I'll be loving you. Love me. So I don't have a great singing voice. I don't know if you guys do, but I play those songs and feel like I'm belting them out to God or to a person or to a situation or circumstance, whatever you feel like can help you. It's really important that you get involved and raise your voice on these problems to create safer communities for us all. You know, when one person recovers, the whole family changes. It does truly take a village to raise a child. And it's going to take all of us to change the face of recovery now that the face of addiction has changed. So this is where you can contact us. We are, again, one of those people that will help you up when you fall down, no matter how many times it takes. You can phone me at 561-376-5682. You can go to visit us on the web at recoverycomeshome.com, or you can email me at adrian@recoverycomeshome.com. We will definitely help get you connected to the right resources. We are like air traffic controllers for recovery. You tell us your situation and we can get you pointed in the right direction, even if you don't work with us. We'd prefer that you do, but we will get you to the right place. We're that dedicated. And then the next thing is thank you everyone for listening. I hope that this presentation has been beneficial and has enlightened you on how the face of addiction has changed and what we can do to create a safer, happier, healthier community together.